Second. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are on this fast forward planet, wrapped in so many turbulent layers of change that it's hard to keep track. Climate is still on the list. You wouldn't know it by looking at the daily headlines these days in most newspapers. But in Brazil, at the mouth of the Amazon River, in a city called Belém, where I was lucky enough to visit a year ago, last August. There's currently the 30th session of the Conference of the Parties to the 1992 Framework Convention on Climate Change, meaning the Climate Treaty. And there are journalists there, even the hardy and determined crew from all around the world, thanks in part to the work of the Earth Journalism Network, which gets journalists who wouldn't ordinarily be able to go are able to cover it, some of them remotely and some on the ground. I'm talking right now with James Fawn, an old friend from journalism, who is a founder of Earth Journalism Network. And that was, gosh, is it almost 20 years ago now?
Over 20 years now.
Over 20 years. And you're there, although we're having some technical difficulties. You can't see his handsome face, but James Fawn is here with us, and he's going to describe a little bit the scene on the ground there. It's still not quite the penultimate moments of the meeting. There's a rhythm to these meetings. I've been to a number of them. So James, and we're going to go through some of the stories that your crew is filing. So just give us a little bit of a background on what you sense this meeting is about, what you've been doing the last few days, and then we'll start to explore some of what journalists are reporting.
Sure. Thanks, Andy. So it's quite lively here. Actually, a lot of journalists here. Apparently over 3,600 media registers. That's more than ever before. So in most of the world, still a very topical issue. And there's been, after 3 years in which we were, and the COP was hosted by petrostates.
Right.
This year, there's been, it's been a much more open and more room for civil society and protests, frankly. A couple of protests kind of got out of hand, shut down the front entrance one or two nights. And so it's definitely a different vibe here. This is supposed to be a really important COP because every 5 years under the Paris Agreement, countries are supposed to submit their nationally determined commitments. They're basically what they're planning to do, what they're committing to do in terms of climate change ambition over the next decade or so. So there was Glasgow, which actually happened in 2021 because of the pandemic, but
right.
This is the next big COP, and everyone's looking at the so-called NDCs, to use the acronym, the commitments that countries are submitting.
Right. Yeah, and as you mentioned, this is 10 years since Paris, which is hard to believe.
Yeah.
And the Paris Agreement, for those who aren't tuned into this stuff, was a real turning point in the treaty process for me. Certainly, I felt like through about Copenhagen in 2009, the process was trying to get a kind of a binding targets and timetables approach. And instead, it came out with this idea of countries weighing in. Sorry, I've got to change the background here. Countries weighing in on their plans domestically, but not in a bound way. They're bound basically by mutual trust and the idea of the periodic review, that we were just building trust and momentum, sort of, but in a soft diplomacy kind of way. And Paris articulated that finally. And this is the 10th year since that agreement. So this is the second round of, what's the name? There's a word for when they report in, essentially. But
stock taking.
Stock taking, yes. There you go.
You got to know all the jargon, Andy.
No, I know. It's been a while since I've been on the ground. The stock take. Do you have your sense of? There was a Guardian headline. I thought it was kind of amusing in a way. it said, we talked about this round being pivotal. I think, is there any round of the climate talks that hasn't been passed as pivotal?
They're all pivotal at this point, but again, every 5 years, it is supposed to be a particularly a momentous time for increased ambition. So,
right.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the Earth Journalism Network and the Climate Change Media Partnership.
Sure.
What is it, and who's there on the ground and who's there virtually?
Yeah, so every year the Climate Change Media Partnership, which is a collaboration now between Internews's Earth Journalism Network and the Stanley Center for Peace and Security, we get together to bring journalists from the Global South, journalists who wouldn't otherwise be able to attend. And this year, we purposely made a point of bringing journalists who had never been to a COP before to cover the summit and get a taste of what all the negotiations and all the side events are about. And it's just a great opportunity. When I was a journalist working for a Thai newspaper about 30 years ago, I got a similar opportunity to go to COP2, and it really changed certainly my career and made me just see how what a big issue this was, and I learn a lot more nuance about the issue. So, this again, these kinds of fellowships, they come for the full 2 weeks. They get training and mentoring from experienced journalists, some of whom you know, Andy, and they get their feet wet. They learn not just about all the negotiations, which are certainly crucial, but very technical and oftentimes quite confusing, but also all the other things going on here. As you know, it's so many side events and side negotiations and all kinds of activities that you can learn. It's like an immersion course for journalists, and even if there's obviously a lot of talking going on, that's perfect for a journalist to learn more about everything related to climate change. So we've been doing this now since 2007 in Bali. And then, yes, we were both in Copenhagen, I remember, in 2009. And then I agree with you that Paris was really a turning point. We Earth Journalism Network at that time, I think we brought something like 50 journalists there, and there was really a strong feeling of optimism. And that has ebbed and flowed, but still, for the journalists who come here, it really is such an eye-opening experience.
Yeah, and as you say, the ones who are supported through your project are coming from places where they would have a real hard time getting the resources to do this normally. And on the earthjournalism.net website is some of the COP30 coverage is unfolding there. Here's a piece from the Bangladesh perspective. Bangladesh warns of deepening divisions centering climate finance. Climate finance has been a real issue in the developing world. Even in Glasgow years ago, that was when the rich countries were starting to pull back from any fossil fuel funding, including in countries that are very poor and have no history of emitting fossil fuels. And that got a lot of African nations upset, for example. Is there some sense of what the temperature is on this kind of issue now?
Sure. I mean, climate finance is always a fraught issue, and the demands and the needs from the developing world only increase. And so there is supposed to be these goals that the countries have agreed to, and I believe it was in 2022 that we finally reached the goal of of investing $100 billion a year from the wealthy countries into the developing world.
Right.
And now the latest what they call the Baku to Belém roadmap. So the so-called roadmap that's supposed to take us forward for climate finance. They're seeking, I believe the number is $1.3 trillion per year by 2035.
Right.
And you can, say what you will about those numbers. There is a huge need, and there is a lot of investment going on in, as you know, renewable energy. I mean, it is big business now, and it's
Yeah.
at least as much investment as in fossil fuel, and that's a big change.
Yeah. And again, China has been this dominant player both in the export of these cheaper technologies and in its own expansion. Have they been much of a presence there yet? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, certainly they have a lot of soft power now, which is kind of
Yeah.
strange to say, but that's where I would just say a lot of countries are looking to get that investment from, and to get those technologies, especially with the U.S. kind of bowing out essentially, at least for the time being. And
Right.
so there's no doubt that China has a very big presence here. And of course, Brazil is, as the host, also has a huge presence. And there's a lot of focus, not just on renewable energies, but on forests and preventing deforestation.
And the protests that were there early on were sort of indigenous led, or some of them?
Yes, there's strong indigenous. Actually, I'd say there's more indigenous presence here than any other COP I've been to, and
That certainly
surprising.
makes sense considering
Yeah,
the geography.
yeah, and there are a whole bunch of local issues, as you can imagine, about land tenure and infrastructure projects that are very controversial.
Right.
And so a lot of these groups are using this as a platform to get their views known.
Yeah. When I was there in 2024, speaking with journalists, there was a lot of concern even that the work they were doing to prepare Belém for the COP was taking away land from informal settlers, and
Hmm.
not just indigenous, but
Yeah.
the others. That's part of the issue sometimes too.
Yeah, well, they're basically creating a temporary city for 50,000 people,
Yeah.
and it's a huge, huge challenge, and it's not easy. And there's certainly been snafus, but I mean, it's so far there, it's moving ahead.
Is there some sense of, at every COP, there is this midnight deadline expectation of a thing? Do you have a way to articulate what you think that thing is here? Is it that finance basket, or just clarity on countries' commitments, or?
Yeah, there are a bunch of goals being put forth. They call it a cover text. Is a multi-RAO, which it's kind of like a negotiation, I suppose. And they're supposed to agree on a lot of things, including climate finance goals and adaptation goals. This is being billed as an adaptation COP. There's a feeling that adaptation's kind of gotten short shrift in the past, especially when it comes to funding. There's some people are pushing for a goal of tripling adaptation finance by over the next 5 to 10 years. So we'll see. But if you're going to do that, then you got to put out a bunch of indicators. You got to agree on indicators, and what does that actually mean? If you're helping countries to adapt. So that's going to be a big issue as well. There's a Tropical Forests Forever facility, kind of a financing, a new fund being set up to invest in standing forests and preventing them again from being cut down, making them valuable standing rather than being cut down. So
Right.
it's a lot of, and another issue interesting for our area of expertise, Andy, is big focus on tackling mis and disinformation.
Yeah.
There's been a huge surge in this in recent years, and several countries have come together to create a global initiative for what they call climate information integrity, to make sure people are getting the facts about climate change.
And I'm showing that one of the stories on your website there, countries
Yes.
signed a declaration to fight climate disinformation. It's certainly, you know, as I've been saying for years now, the information climate, if we don't get that right, you can pretty much write off the actual biogeophysical climate.
Exactly. And that's something that we at the Earth Journalism Network, we're trying to address more. We're working a lot more with social media content creators. We've got a program called Earth Shorts where we bring together so-called influencers with traditional journalists so they can learn from each other, essentially. And the journalists learn how to make more appealing short-form video content and share it on the platforms. And the content creators learn how to get their climate facts and verify them and make sure they're providing good, solid information.
Yeah, I'm showing that now. That's a program I wasn't aware of. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the traditional flows of news, what we used to call news, going through journalism outlets was very constrained to certain pipelines, and this feels like a creative way to get around some of that. Are you is EJN? Are you on TikTok?
We are on Instagram and other platforms. We've got a site on. I mean, we've got a presence on TikTok, but we haven't really committed to it. But it's kind of a matter of resources. I mean, it's just
sure, it's overwhelming.
Our goal is really to get local media, support local media, so get them more. Get them the resources they need to get their presence shown. So,
is your arena, USAID was a significant aid to some of this kind of work, and I don't know whether that's all been a big challenge to get around.
Yes, indeed. I mean, we had 5 to 6 grants from the U.S. federal government at the beginning of the year, and those were terminated. So we had to adjust. It's certainly been a roller coaster of a year, but fortunately, we do have significant private and European funding, and we've been able to stay afloat, and even in some areas, expand. But we did lose some important projects and some key staff, and we really regret that. And it's just a shame.
It's really quite a time in so many ways. Yeah, the program that brought me to Brazil in 2024 was through the State Department too, and I'm sure that's long gone.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share or that people should know about? I'm showing earthjournalism.net is the page to go to for all this stuff, but what else would you like to get out there before we get off with the evening? You're later in the evening than we are here.
Yeah. Just to say how important it is to for folks out there to support your local media, and especially if you want to receive good and solid information about climate change and the environment, then whether it's through philanthropy or through markets or whatever, we need to reward the communicators. So I hope people out there are paying attention, and these are really important issues that are affecting people's lives, affecting our lives too, sometimes in ways we don't really understand. So thanks very much for your attention to this, and we'll see what happens by the end of the week.
We will. Maybe I'll check back in with you and we'll do a closing capstone kind of a conversation. Jonathan Watts from The Guardian is going to come on too, I think, at some point. He went there by boat. He lives further up the Amazon.
Right.
So, see if I can get him on the water or in the halls. We'll figure that out. All right. So James Fahn from Earth Journalism Network, thanks for checking in from Belém, Brazil. And have a good evening and stay safe and enjoy the acai and the great river fish there. If you get I hope you can get to the fish market down by the.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that. Yes,
it's mind blowing. It is mind blowing. So try to do that.
Okay, we'll do.
Actually, if you have another second, do you have Let me see if I can pull up a clip of one of the things that I. Let's see. Oh, where they changed the controls recently. That's the wrong one. Share video file. Hold on. Let's see if I can show something. Just as a going away present.
We did go across the river to the Kwambu Island. It was really, good experience. They had something called the Acai experience. They showed us.
Oh, here we go. So here's the acai part of the market by the river.
Yeah.
This was from last year. It's just look at all that fruit.
Wow.
So I do recommend that.
Okay.
Anyway, take care, and also watch out for falling mangoes.
We will do. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, James Fawn. Have a good night.
Bye.
Okay.